Ew, ew, y'all know what it is. And we are back and we're here to discuss Gavin Newsom and his comments on trans athletes. All right. So if you're not paying attention, Gavin Newsom, he's in a little bit of some hot water among his own party. That's right, among the Democratic Party for his comments saying that it is unfair for trans women, aka biologically born men, to be competing in sports against women, biologically born women. Okay, so watching this interview that Gavin Newsom did with Charlie Kirk and hearing Charlie Kirk's response afterwards, where he said that one thing that was clear in the interview is that there's nobody on earth that wants to be president of the United States more than Gavin Newsom. And that is why I believe that Gavin Newsom, that and a lot of other reasons, based on his personality, his morals, the things that he's demonstrated that he's willing to do, which is anything, bend, change his opinion, change his lie to himself, lie to the public, lie to America, lie to whoever, do anything in order to become the president of the United States. And I think he's one of the most dangerous people in our country. And we're going to get into exactly why I believe that with this show. So we're going to look at first some of the first clip that we're going to look at is his conversation with Charlie Kirk, where they're going over whether or not it's unfair or fair for trans women to be competing in sports against men. Then we're going to take a clip from a Piers Morgan interview with Caitlyn Jenner, in which Caitlyn Jenner shares her insight. I believe Caitlyn Jenner goes by her. Want to be respectful. Caitlyn Jenner shares her insight as far as on biologically born men competing with biologically born women. And then we're going to call out the hypocrisy and why Gavin Newsom is such a danger to America and perhaps the world. All right, so let's get into this first clip. I'm going to shut up. There we go. And let you guys give me your thoughts on it.
So like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that.
Let me play that again because I'm not sure the folks in the back heard. All right, let's play the entire clip.
So like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that.
So like you right.
Now, Gavin Newsom is known for being very progressive, and he's known for pushing very progressive rules on trans athletes, and also rules with the school system, let's say with far as teachers. And we're going to play that clip afterwards. But the fact that Gavin Newsom is getting called out by his party, and let me actually take a second, and I'm going to find Lori Lightfoot. She called Gavin Newsom's comments disgusting. And she said something about trans athletes are going to be waking up and feeling like their governor hates them or something like that. Let me get exactly her comments because I wasn't even going to go that way. But I think it's important for us to actually hear what a lot of these extreme radical Democrats are saying. So let me read this. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot called the remarks disgusting, saying transgender youth in California would feel hated by their governor. Gavin Newsom saying what all of us already know, which is that it's unfair for a biologically born man to be competing against a biologically born woman or girl and boy. This is how far the Democrats have gone. This is how extreme and radical. This is who they've tied their allegiance to when it comes to this LGBTQ community. And I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the movement. I want to be very clear. I distinguish between the two. All right. There's definitely a difference between the people and this radical movement that is called, or changes. They add letters, plus signs, whatever. LGBTQIA, LGBTQ. Y'all know who I'm talking about. This is what happens when you pander to certain groups, when you pander to certain groups to the point where you encourage, where you support their radical views, their extreme views. And then when you want to make sense of it because you realize that the rest of the country, or the majority of the country, doesn't agree with you on it, now you want to pivot. You can't, because you already supported these radical and extreme views. So let's actually listen to, I mean, who better, right? Caitlyn Jenner, one of the first and maybe most famous trans women. And with Caitlyn Jenner's background in being one of the greatest athletes of all time as a biologically born man and winning gold in the Olympics, I believe it was in the decathlon. Don't quote me on that. But she was known as one of the greatest athletes of all time. And obviously she was competing then as a man. So let's listen to an interview that she did with Piers Morgan, because why take my word for it? Why take your word for it? Let's actually take the word of somebody who's actually completed. Well, I don't know if she's completed the entire transition, but somebody that can speak to it from experience rather than us. So let's take a look at this interview.
However, let's turn to the main event of this interview. You're perfectly qualified, Caitlyn, to talk about this, because I have a strong view that I support trans rights to fairness and equality, but in issues like sport and women's sport, not to the point where it starts to degrade the fairness and equality for women competitors in sport, for example. You've competed as a man hugely successfully, and now you've transitioned to be a woman. What is your view about this?
Well, I've been, first of all, you're right. We have to do the best we can here. But I have said from the beginning, and I stand with it, that I don't want biological boys to compete against women and girls in sports. It's just not fair. Now, obviously, over the last 6 months, especially, because of Leah Thomas at the University of Pennsylvania, she had been on the boys' team just a few years earlier. I do not blame her. She played within the rules. But she dominated. She had gone through male puberty. Her lungs are bigger, her back's bigger, her hands are bigger. She just has a tremendous advantage in swimming in the pool against the women, and she proved that.
Is this not obvious? What did Caitlyn Jenner say? It's just not fair. The fact that we even have to have this conversation is wild. The fact that we have to have this conversation is wild. And it just goes to show, not just with Gavin Newsom, but when people want votes, when people want your support in order to line their pockets, in order to sell their product, in order to win an election, they will say and do anything and align themselves with any group as long as they see light at the end of the tunnel as far as them getting their goal accomplished. That's what happens. Let's keep going.
So I don't have a problem with her. I have a problem with the NCAA, that we have to change the rules. We have to do a better job, because the bottom line is we have to keep it fair. And I don't want to ruin women's sports or discourage women from getting into sports because they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to compete against a bunch of guys.
I mean, I totally agree.
Which makes zero sense, because the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of feminists, the party of pushing for women's rights, women's opportunities. But yet you can't connect the dots that when you have a biologically born man like Leah Thomas, in the example that Caitlyn Jenner just gave, they are clearly going to have unfair advantages based on biology. Unfair advantages. Leah Thomas went through puberty. Leah Thomas is developed as a man. So clearly, she's going to have an unfair emphasis on unfair advantage over every other biologically born woman that she's competing against.
Not fair.
I totally agree, Caitlyn. But what I would also say is I don't want to expose trans people to mockery, which is now going on with this debate because it looks so ridiculous that you see Leah Thomas.
It is ridiculous. All right, so that's all we need to watch from there. I want to keep the video as short as possible. Let's move on to this other clip from Charlie Kirk being on the show with Gavin Newsom. And then I'm going to break down exactly why I think Gavin Newsom is one of the most dangerous people in our country. Let's look at this clip.
You signed a law where school districts can't even tell parents if their kids are trans.
Not true.
Okay,
Factually
then,
untrue.
okay, then.
No, they can. They just can't get fired for not doing that. And it wasn't just.
So teachers won't get fired for not telling parents that their kids are showing or behaving in a transgender, LGBTQ across the board way. Let's keep going.
Trans.
Fired for not.
There was the law.
As a parent, I'm asking all the parents out there. I'm not a parent, not yet. Hopefully soon. That's why I'm knocking on wood, not to not be a parent. Hopefully soon. I couldn't imagine a teacher not telling me that my child is demonstrating transgender tendencies and that teacher not telling me. I just couldn't imagine that. When kids go to school, they behave in different ways. And a lot of people will say that, oh, well, parents should know what's going on. If it's going on in school, it's going on in the house. That's BS. We know as kids that a lot of the things that were going on in school that we were involved with, our parents had no idea. No idea. And he signed a law pretty much giving teachers an out. Teachers who are already, let's add this in, already super progressive, super liberal, giving them an out to not tell parents. Just think about all the other silly stuff that teachers tell parents. I'd rather you not tell me about my kid being late to class. I'd rather you not tell me about my kid. I'd rather you not tell me about my kid getting into a fight in school damn near. And obviously, I'm just speaking from somebody that doesn't have kids. But the point that I'm trying to make, tell me if my kid gets in a fight. But my kid's going to tell me that, hopefully. But either way, you need to report back. I need to know. I'm not going to say everything, but I damn sure need to know if I'm sending my son to school as Daniel and he's moving around class like Danielle. I need to know that. So let's keep going in here with the rest of what Gavin Newsom has to say.
Was explicit, said you can't be fired for not snitching on a kid, not just
for not snitching on a kid. This goof is trying to, he tries to be so cool and relatable by using these terms. It's like, bro, you don't like, this man is dangerous. Snitching on a kid, a teacher telling a parent that their kid is behaving in or acting like a girl, even though they're your son. He's saying that we're not going to fire a teacher for snitching on a kid. This is the governor of California. This was who they thought would be next in line, perhaps for presidency after Joe Biden. This is who this is. That's spewing this ignorant nonsense.
just for being trans, for being gay. And my point is, how in the hell
But
are
shouldn't
you
the
telling
parents know?
They have every.
Wait, is
by the
telling
way,
parents snitching?
no, the teachers themselves have the right. The law is they can do that. They can do that. We're not saying you can't do that. We're saying you shouldn't be fired if you choose not to say Johnny was talking about liking some other boy.
That's a charitable
or something.
reading. The other
It's not
way
charitable. It's actual.
Let me
the
tell
freedom
you,
not
let
to.
me tell you
snitch.
the other way to say this: that a teacher, of course, should be fired if you don't notify a parent of what's happening to their kid.
But
Of
I mean,
course they should be terminated for that.
if
Whose
on health and safety, shouldn't they be teaching? I want these kids to teach. I want these teachers to teach. And by the way, if they feel like the health or safety of their kid, they have a responsibility to communicate. They still can. By the way, we're not telling these teachers they can't. We're saying they won't be fired if they don't look around and say in the recess, there were 2 boys. Why didn't you see that? You're fired. You should have said something because they're talking about
2 different things. But there, of course, should be a penalty measure, whether it be termination or whatever, if a teacher withholds information from a parent. Because what you're saying is that there's no way to hold them accountable. So you're saying you're
accountable to what, though?
The
Accountable
parents,
to 2 kids talking about the fact that
this is
talking about subject matter. All of a sudden now we have to have teachers policing
I think,
speech or conversations.
I think you would
even
agree, Governor, that is an over extreme example. What we're talking about,
no, but the extreme example. This was a solution in search of a problem.
What we're talking about is if, which happens a lot, unfortunately, is if.
And the reason I'm actually searching for another clip because I want to see the extended version of the first clip that I showed y'all, where Gavin Newsom was talking about it being unfair for the transgender athletes. He made some comments after that were pretty much, he was saying, I want to find it, but as I'm looking for it, I'm going to tell you what it was. But he made comments along the lines that, well, even though it's not unfair, I want to protect the feelings of the transgender kids because they have a higher suicide rate. That's what he said. So let me ask you this. If transgender kids, adults, have a higher suicide rate, why would you not make it a fireable offense for teachers if they do not tell the parents that their kids are behaving like transgenders? Why would teachers not be forced to tell that to parents if on the other end you're saying that, hey, you got to be careful and walk on eggshells in telling biologically born men who call themselves trans women, who are trans women, however you want to put it, you got to walk on eggshells to say that it's unfair for them to compete against women, biologically born women, because it's unfair biologically. You have to walk on eggshells for that. But then in this argument, you're so scared or you're so concerned about, oh, well, these transgenders, you know, they have a higher suicide rate. So why would you not make teachers tell parents that? If my child is behaving in a way or identifying in such a way to where they are going to have a higher chance of suicide, the nerve of Gavin Newsom to put a law in play, to put a law for California teachers that allows them to not tell parents that their child is behaving or is a transgender child, identifying as transgender. This is why Gavin Newsom is so dangerous. This is why he's such a dangerous person. He will say and do anything. And I want to show the other clip because he then talks about how he has daughters and how certain things would be unfair. He knew this when he put this law in play. He knew this. He's acting like, and this is what I'm seeing with a lot of Democrats where they want to talk about reparations now. Y'all have the power to do a lot of the things that you complain about, but when you have the power, you never do them. Gavin Newsom saying it's unfair. Charlie Kirk called him out and said, you should change this. He brought up an example of a long jump athlete, trans woman athlete who's getting ready to compete for the long jump in the state championship in California, who I believe won or has been jumping 4 feet longer than any of the other women. So obviously is the favorite to win. He could stop that right now, but he can't in his mind, because it would turn off too many of voters that he's relying on to give him power, to give him influence. This is why he's such a dangerous person. And this, in my opinion, is why the Democrats are such a dangerous party. They will do any and everything. There's no foundational principles. You telling me that Gavin Newsom didn't know before this interview that he just had an epiphany that biologically born men have a physical advantage over biologically born women when it comes to sports? Do you expect it? Like, does he expect you who's watching this video? Does Gavin Newsom expect you to think that he just had this epiphany that he didn't think that before? It's insane. I'm going to play a little bit more of this. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to find the rest of the conversation. If I could find um, a longer clip of that particular conversation around the unfairness with the trans athletes.
If a young girl says that, hey, I want to transition, and the teacher accommodates and affirms it, and the parent doesn't even know. I have met parents like that in the
I heard
state.
Trump, and then they come back and they're a boy
again,
or something. There's so much extreme
But
rhetoric
I will
in this
say,
space.
and we don't have to, we don't have to wrestle too much on this topic. But you guys will lose on these topics, and you might disagree. But
again, I'm one of those guys, and Charlie, I appreciate, and I by the way appreciate the civility which we're engaged in this conversation sincerely. I don't mind losing. Sometimes you lose on principle. It's one of those things. Everything's not political is the point. And sometimes the principle, and by the way, mad respect for you on abortion and same-sex marriage. You feel
where
the
the
same
American
way.
people don't agree with me.
Exactly. And
All right, I think I found the clip. Let me try to share it with y'all. I think I found the clip. I'm not totally sure, so I am taking a little bit of a chance, but it is what it is. Let's see if we can find it here. Okay, boom. Here we go. I found
these
it.
poor
Sorry.
people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety.
Rhetoric on the trans community.
So that's easy to call out the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well.
Still, new.
You see what I mean? You see what I mean?
Are more likely to commit suicide.
They're more likely to
Have anxiety
commit
and depression.
suicide, have anxiety and depression. But you don't want to force your teachers to let the parents know that their child is engaging in behavior that they are more likely to commit suicide, be depressed, or have anxiety. This is why he's so dangerous. He will say and do anything to get his end goal. He actually is more dangerous than a lot of these prideful people with ego who won't change their stances. He's more dangerous. He'll change his stance to whatever is necessary in order to get to the next step that makes it closer for him to become the president of the United States. This is insane that we are even having a back and forth conversation on this type of thing. And a lot of people who talk on this topic will say, well, they're only 0.5% of the population. There's not that many transgender athletes. It doesn't really impact people. Are you dumb? In the words of Mayor Eric Adams, are you stupid? If I go out, let's say, let me take it back to my high school days. If I decided that I was going to go compete against women, you may say, well, that's only one person in the entire town, one person in the entire county, in the entire state. It's not impacting anybody. Well, let's say that I did something like run track, or I competed in swimming, or I competed in another individual sport, or even a team sport. But I think it's a little bit more understandable when it comes to a one-on-one sport. If I competed in track, I would beat everybody. I beat everybody. If I competed for the shot put, I'd beat everybody. If I competed in the long jump, I'd beat everybody. So it's not just me that it's impacting every single person in that state, because when I bring home the state title, that means, and when I decide to compete in that particular field, that means no woman has a legit chance of winning unless I just fail or get injured. So it's impacting all those young girls that strive, that compete, that bust their behinds for the opportunity to become the best at their sport, where they're trying to shave off hundreds of seconds in track, in swimming, where they're trying to get just an extra inch on their long jump, an extra inch on their shot put, discus. Well, women don't do shot put, I don't think. Well, do high school women do shot put? Y'all get the point that I'm making. Javelin, whatever it may be. And here I am going to come in, just like that long jumper in California that they were talking about, and win by 4 feet. knowing that no other woman no other girl that plays that sport, that competes, will ever have the opportunity to be called a state champion if you're in my state, a county champion if you're in my county, a regional champion if you're in my region. You will never be able to win. And we are sitting here having this conversation as if it just impacts, it just impacts one. No, it doesn't. It impacts a lot more. And that's not even talking about the cultural impact. So that's pretty much all I got on this situation. Matter of fact, we'll finish off playing this Hakeem Jeffries response to it, because I believe that Hakeem Jeffries was asked for his response on the situation, and listen to what he responded. Listen to his response. It makes absolutely no sense. I'm completely lost. And maybe that's what he was trying to do. Listen to this.
Ask about California Governor Gavin Newsom's comments saying that Democrats were in the wrong for allowing transgender athletes to compete in female and girls sports. What is your response to that after Democrats had opposed the women and girls?
Doing a lot of nodding.
I haven't seen his comments. What Democrats opposed was unleashing sexual predators on girls throughout the United States of America.
What Democrats opposed was releasing sexual predators on girls. And wait, what? Let's listen to that again. I have no idea how that's relevant to the conversation that Gavin Newsom was having, but I can't say I'm surprised.
Seeing his comments, what Democrats opposed was unleashing sexual predators on girls throughout the United States of America. Thank you. Last question.
Yo, sometimes I wonder what world we're living in right now. Maybe it would have been better for him to just say, I haven't heard it yet, so let me listen to it and then I'll respond. He responded by saying Democrats opposed unleashing sexual predators on girls in the United States of America. Like what? What? Yeah. That's where we are. And maybe that's why the Democratic Party is in turmoil right now. They have nothing to stand on. They move with the wind. They will say and do anything, appeal to whatever group, attach themselves to whatever group, attach themselves to whatever cause, whether extreme, radical, doesn't matter, if it means the chance for them to get votes. So I'll wrap it up here. Make sure that if you did like the video, that you give us a like, that you subscribe, and that you, if you're feeling real generous, maybe share with some friends. Throw it in the group chat. Throw it in the group chat. All right. With that, I shall see y'all soon. Over and out. Ew.